Hi, everybody. I'm Saquib. Thanks for the intro, Steve. So I oversee digital media customer acquisition at Symantec. So the fun thing is, let me get into the agenda first. So I'll do a quick introduction about myself, about the company, and about the products. I'll go into after that. I just want to make sure that I know there's a variety of audiences in the types of audiences in the room, so I want to make sure that I don't get too detailed about our specific product launch. I want to make sure that it's applicable to everybody else in the room. So I'll talk about overall themes of what we learned. It's been about 30 months or so since the Symantec acquisition of LifeLock happened. So I've decided to sort of break up the timeframes into two halves. So I'll talk about the first half, what we learned, second half, what we learned, try to summarize it all up in the last slide, and if there's time at the end for questions, I'm happy to answer that. And I'll be around so I can answer questions off stage as well. Great, introductions. So once again, Saquib Pasha, responsible for acquiring customers in the digital world in this Symantec environment. So interesting thing about the businesses, so as I was in the process of putting this presentation together, Symantec, as some of you guys might know, is this global antivirus brand. So we have two large parts of the business. One half of the business, about $2.5 billion of revenue, is the consumer side, which includes all the Norton and all the LifeLock brands. And the second side is this enterprise side, which is Symantec. So as I was sort of thinking about, I spoke to Steve and I was like, okay, I'm going to present this journey that we went through, all the stuff that we learned, and hopefully the industry that we're in, a lot of changes, a lot of mergers, a lot of acquisitions, a lot of, end of terms of companies as well. So hopefully it'll be applicable. So we had this conversation 3 weeks ago, and I think like 2 weeks ago, Symantec sold the enterprise side, half the business, which is the Symantec side, to Broadcom for $10 billion. So I think what's really interesting is I'm talking about all these things. They're like, hey, we learned all this stuff. Hopefully it's helpful, and I think I'm actually going to have to practice what I preach, because we're going to start this journey all over again, because we are now, Norton LifeLock's going to end up at the end of this year being its own publicly traded company minus the Symantec brand. So we're going to start this whole dog and pony show again. So then let me talk about the products as well. So LifeLock, and I came from the LifeLock side of the acquisition, which closed in early 2017. So we're identity theft protection company. There's about 6 million or so customers that we have today. Symantec, which is the consumer side, so Norton has about 20 million global customers. We have offices everywhere. We have customers everywhere across the globe. So then when the Norton Symantec acquisition of LifeLock happened, what was promised to the street for this multi-billion-dollar acquisition was like, hey, look, identity theft protection is this growing segment. We hear about breaches all the time. There was Capital One that happened a week, 2 weeks ago, while I was on vacation, so that was fun, having to work on vacation. So it was a growing segment. The Norton side of the fence, which is the big cash cow, stable business that's multiple decades old now, 20 million customers, shrinking. So what was promised to the street was like, hey, we have this identity theft protection service, we have this device protection service. If we can bundle and have one product that sells cyber security, whatever that means, we can reverse the churn in our overall customer numbers and increase our LTV. So that is the journey that I'll kind of walk you guys through. So we had to start off with, we had two funnels. So there's a Norton funnel where we're selling Norton products, and we had a LifeLock funnel that we're selling LifeLock products. The end goal is to sell a single cybersecurity product that does both antivirus protection as well as identity theft insurance on both funnels. So that's where we are today. Great. So let me just try to make sure that this is applicable to everybody in the audience. So I was thinking about how to sort of make this relevant for more than myself in this room. So I was thinking back about like all the types of launches I've been a part of in the past. So I did this big company, small launch thing when I was at eBay. I was at eBay for 5 years. We launched this within the eBay umbrella, this ecologically sustainable worldofgood.com website, and much easier to do than what we embarked on over the last like 30 months. It was a small launch in a big company, not a lot of money involved. It was much early in my work career as well, so I had a much smaller seat at the table as well. Didn't have to make a lot of gut calls, pretty easy. Small company, big launch. So I was at a startup where a new product launch, super complicated, startup, 100 people, CEO made all the decisions, much easier. The journey we've been on over the last 30 months, and I think we're about to embark on post-December again, is this big company, big launch problem set that we have to solve for, where there's multiple funnels, multiple brands, new product, new cybersecurity category, whatever that means, as I keep saying. Lots of people, lots of cross-functional work that needs to get done, lots of stakeholders. So yeah, I mean, so it's been a fun journey. And then the other interesting thing that I wanted to talk about is, so I divided this time frame into 2 separate segments. So there's the first half, and then there's the second half. So success for us, the first, and honestly, if you guys asked us internally, like, hey, 30 months ago, is this how you guys would have planned this journey? I think the external answer would be yes, but like internally, like this is not what the game plan was. I think we kind of figured our way out. We did have certain promises out to Wall Street that we made about integrating the 2 products together and the 2 companies together that we did need to keep. But this is very like hindsight being 2020, like, you know, revisionist history. Like I'm trying to position things in a good and in a bad way. So all right, so success after the first 15 months. So as I kept saying, we have this Norton funnel and we have this LifeLock funnel. So for us, success after the first 15 months was selling LifeLock in the Norton funnel, and that's it. Success in the second half, where we are today, is selling this new product, which does cybersecurity on both funnels, on Norton funnel and LifeLock funnel. And since then, we've realized that the iOS and the Google Play funnel are 2 additional funnels. So we have 2 more funnels that we have to think about. Great, first half insights. So I was thinking about, so I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts. I waste a lot of time listening to a lot of sports podcasts. And I was thinking about like, hey, like, you know, at the end of the day, they're covering the same content over and over again. It's LeBron James, Dallas Cowboys, Steph Curry, whatever it is. But I keep going back to listen to the same stuff over and over again. I was like wondering like why that is. And I think the obvious answer is like, I like the content. And I also think it's because I think these guys take a really strong position on like, hey, yep, you know, this guy is good, this team sucks, whatever it is. And then the other thing, so I think that's interesting. And the other thing that I also like is when these guys go back and they'll say like, yep, this is where we were right, this is where we were wrong. So I don't know if there's any Colin Cowherd fans in the audience. He's with Fox Sports. So he has this segment called Where I Was Right and Where I Was Wrong. So I tried to set that up in that same format, this presentation. So I have a series of slides of like, okay, yeah, this is where we were right and this is where we were wrong. I didn't quite call it, you know, this is where we were right, this is where we were wrong, because don't have a multi-year contract with Symantec like these guys do with ESPN and Fox Sports, and I like my job. So I positioned it as like wins and opportunities. It's also getting live streamed, so I want to make sure I stay on the right side of our PR team. Great. All right, win. First half. So the deal closed, the Symantec acquisition of LifeLock closed February of 2017. The the thing about a product launch at the end of the day is there's lots of people working with lots of other people. We were two organizations that didn't really know each other, that functioned at a variety of paces, that came together, and we had launched this cybersecurity product at this time frame as the end goal. So I think one thing that we did really well was within the first quarter of the deal closing, I think we'd figured out who the C-suite was going to be. I think within the first 6 months, we figured out like a couple layers underneath that. So it was really good in getting the people, at least at the highest levels, organized. And I was very impressed by the pace at which we'd been able to do that. So that was definitely a win. It was super critical to getting things done because at least we knew, like, okay, this guy's the head of the enterprise side, this guy's the head of the consumer side, and these are the product leads, and these are the engineering leads, and so on and so forth. Great. What we didn't do as well as we'd hoped for. So now that I'm going through this new Broadcom acquisition of Symantec, the enterprise side, so I'm on the consumer side, it's a very, very different experience. So Broadcom's come out and said, like, hey, look, on the enterprise side, you guys have $2.4 billion of expenses every year. We need to cut that down to $600 million the first year of the acquisition. So they've announced, like, hey, look, we're going to reduce headcount by a very large number. Symantec, when they bought LifeLock, didn't make that announcement. So what ended up happening was we just doubled the size of every team. So marketing became twice as big. Engineering became twice as big. And then over time, when it came to launching a product, it became challenging because even though the C-suite and maybe a couple layers underneath that were fairly well organized, I think when the actual work had to get done, there's just a lot of confusion as to who owns what. And it took us, I'd say, like a good 6 to 12 months to sort of figure that thing out. So hopefully, moving forward, we can do that better the second time around. Great, win. Well, we did right. Selection of a brand journey to aspire to. So as soon as Norton bought LifeLock, we're like, okay, what is this end company going to be called? Like, what are we selling on and on what funnel? Because all the Norton folks were like, we love the Norton brand. All the LifeLock folks were like, we love the LifeLock brand. Nobody really wanted to kill that brand equity and kill that brand. So originally the position that we took was, hey, look at FedEx Kinko's, right? Like, okay, FedEx Kinko's was FedEx Kinko's for the first couple of years, and over time this Kinko's, brand went away. So we're like, okay, great, so which one's gonna go away? Oh, it's LifeLock. Well, the LifeLock people are unhappy, but at least we picked a path. We could talk to our external partners, we could communicate externally, like that's what we're trying to do. Turns out we were a little bit too hasty in making that decision. We were trying to be fast because I think we were trying to be organized and execute as fast as possible. However, turns out that there's a lot of brand equity tied to LifeLock. There's a lot of brand equity tied to Norton. It didn't make sense for us to leave revenue on the table. And we'd spent hundreds of millions of dollars over a decade marketing LifeLock. So we just didn't want to kill that brand. So it's like, well, it's not FedEx Kinko's anymore. It's this AT&T Uverse journey that we're going to pick because there's AT&T, there's DirecTV, there's Uverse. So that, and all three brands exist, all three funnels exist. The funny thing is, like, while we were selecting this, like, I was going through the process of selecting cable and internet, and it was such a pain trying to figure out the difference between Uverse, DirecTV, AT&T. So maybe we change that journey again, but for the time being, that's the one that we're sticking to. So we learned that. Win, customer messaging and positioning research. So the LifeLock side, we were very, very heavily invested in like offline channels. So a lot of TV, a lot of radio, stuff that's expensive to produce, expensive to buy. You don't frequently change the ad units all the time. So what we had was we had a very robust customer research team that went out there and would figure out pretty quickly and pretty effectively, like paneling, canvassing, like speaking to actual humans about like, hey, what are the reasons to buy these products? So when the two companies came together, we had that function. We're like, okay, what does cybersecurity mean? What are certain features that resonate with people? Like what gives people the reason to buy? So we were able to really leverage that muscle. We figured like, hey, look, people care about identity theft, device protection, they care about their Wi-Fi privacy, VPN, so on and so forth. So we were able to really leverage that muscle, and our marketing copy was fairly early on, was actually pretty good, compared to what I had seen in the past from my prior experiences. Great, so customer research sat under marketing, so we could execute really quickly. What we didn't do as well, so our landing page and our customer experience within the funnel, so for at eBay and at Netflix and at Symantec as well, so my prior experiences have historically sat with product, and turns out in a new company with lots of people coming together, that relationship takes a little bit of time to build. So we were landing people on pages that it's like LifeLock ads. I'm sure there was like 5% of instances, even in my channels, where you're clicking on a LifeLock ad and sometimes like landing on like a Norton.com funnel, and vice versa. That's also easier to fix because we can tweak where the landing pages are. I think the stuff that was really painful for me was because Norton had this 20 million large existing customer base, the CRM channel was the largest driver of revenue. So marketing would land users on a landing page, and the user would be willing to give you a credit card number to sign up for our product, and we'd say, wait, fill up this whole like account with all your details, and then we'll take your credit card, right? So this is the type of stuff like I think it's taken a long time for us to fix, which is like, hey, they're ready to pay you, take the money, and then get the lead for getting them to renew next year, and so on and so forth. So that was a fun journey. I think we've solved for that mostly. We're much better on the app side than we still are on our e-store, but definitely something that we learned. Win, reporting setup. Norton had fairly robust reporting. LifeLock had fairly robust reporting. Two companies came together. We had our LifeLock goals. We had our Norton goals. All fun and dandy. So that was working well. Problem, KPIs. So we were selling, so the goals were misaligned. So on the Norton side, we cared about revenue, and on the LifeLock side, we cared about units. So for me and my team, it became very challenging around like, okay, are we optimizing revenue by selling more units, selling fewer units at higher ASP? Like, what is it that we're trying to ultimately optimize for? Other problems, we had like a variety of attribution models early on. So we were measuring Norton in a different way than we were measuring LifeLock. Ultimately, I had a number that I needed to hit. Multiple attribution methodologies made life really complicated. We've mostly solved for that by now. Win, agency consolidation. So what happened, one of the good things that happened during this big multi-billion-dollar buy was early on we got McKinsey consultants within our midst. So generally speaking, I think a lot of people have like unhappy reactions when we have another stakeholder come in and tell us what we need to do. But for this instance, I think it was actually a super helpful experience because we went through a period where since we were just double of everything, we had double the number of creative agencies that we need, double the number of media agencies that we needed, and McKinsey was, and because the agency decision was so diffused in who makes the final call, it was actually helpful to have a third party like a McKinsey who we were paying a lot of money for, so hence rolled up into the CEO to referee that process. So we were able to actually get the agency number down to, both on the creative side and on the media side, down to an efficient number within the 6-month period where we started conversations and the contracts got signed. So that was pretty good. What we missed out on, so ad tech consolidation. So we had multiple attribution vendors. We had Google Analytics on one side. We had Adobe site analytics on the other side. We had multiple DMPs. We had multiple DSPs. And it's just because they were cheaper individually than our agency relationships, It just got kind of put to the side, and we probably solved this a quarter or two later than it really needed to be. But at the end of the day, what happened was like, and this is good for the next go for us because we're going to start this again, is procurement got involved. And then so we had to get involved as well because we were like, okay, we're paying all this money for multiple DMPs. What do we really need? And then that's what kickstarted our process into like, shrinking down to a more sustainable, longer-term number on the ad tech side. Bundle experimentation, yeah. So like I said, we were trying to figure out what product to sell on what funnel. We had made promises to the street. We had to hit these numbers. There was like no way out. We were historically fairly risk-averse as a company when it comes to testing big things, but I mean, we didn't have that the time this time around, so it forced us to experiment really quickly, which was great. Opportunity. While we were going through this long, complicated exercise of launching the cybersecurity category, what had happened is Symantec had, prior to the LifeLock acquisition, made promises externally to get into the home router security market. So think about your Google Wi-Fi's of the world. Think about your Eros of the world. So before they bought LifeLock, they said like, yep, we're going to launch this product in this time frame. So then they bought LifeLock. Then we had a larger problem to solve for. So what ended up happening is we did not end up spending any time, or not enough time, on the smaller category that we wanted to launch. So as a result, we didn't do the best job possible, and product doesn't exist anymore. So we've sunset that product. So that was a little bit of a miss on our side. But like I said, I mean, we made certain promises to the street prior to the acquisition. So hopefully we don't do that for the next go. Win. So this is the last one in this first half. I'm going to try and speed up to the second half. So regionalization and focus. So one thing that we did realize is that all our Asia Pac offices, our EMEA offices, had their own engineering departments, had their own product departments, and could make their own decisions. So what we did is to hasten up the execution. We just basically democratized the process of like, hey, if you're the Asia Pac lead or if you're the EMEA lead, you're not held to North American decisions about when we're launching what. So that was like definitely a win for us because we went from the centers of excellence model where all decisions were being made in the U.S. to empowering our regional offices to do the right thing and to do it quickly. So that was definitely a win. Moving on to the second half of your slides here. Win. So this second half, once again, the success point is where we are today, which is we're able to sell the cybersecurity product on both the Norton and the LifeLock funnel, as well as the multiple app store funnels. So how do we do this? Marketing channel selection for the launch test. So what we did pretty well is we realized that we didn't want to test selling this new product on expensive channels where the creatives took a long time to build. So offline was basically, so what my boss, the CMO, was able to do was he was able to buy time with the leadership to just to say like, hey, look, we're not going to test on TV. We're not going to test on radio. We're not going to, if it doesn't work, we don't want it to be super expensive on the on the media side and the actually building of the ad unit side. So we picked all the digital channels which were on my plate. So that was fun. Okay, great. So then we had tests going on the affiliate side, on the search side, on the display side, on the email side. So all the digital channels. So then, obviously, we got conflicting results from various channels. So on the affiliate side, as an example, Norton affiliates could not wait to sell LifeLock because the payouts on the LifeLock side, because the LTV was higher, was going to be much better. And then the Norton affiliates were like, no, so then the LifeLock affiliates were like, nope, we don't really need to pitch Norton. Similarly, on the email side, we had like conflicting insights. Sometimes LifeLock worked better with Norton. Sometimes Norton worked better with LifeLock. Sometimes the red ads worked better than the yellow ads. It was kind of all over the place. So then it was interesting yesterday when our friends from T-Mobile were talking, and they basically said like, and I fully agree, which is like, hey, look, like sometimes the results are going to say something that you don't necessarily agree with because it's just a crappy customer journey and you're just going to have to make a gut call. So that's what we ended up doing, but it was a very, very painstaking process because, conflicting insights. Price testing. So one of the things that we learned about launching a new category was using price as a lever. So we did this pretty well, I'd say. We were able to get a lot of testing out on a lot of different digital channels. We learned a lot, but on the flip side, what ended up happening is, as I'd mentioned at the start of the conversation, we were optimizing to revenue, units. We had this ASP number, which was revenue divided by units. We wanted to keep an eye out on churn rates. They're kind of like they're not all they don't all move in the same direction. So the types of price settings, so we ended up testing a lot of discounts on our monthly product, which really generated good units, but it cost us revenue because instead of buying our annual product, people were buying our monthly products. So once again, we just have to make some gut decisions on what's right and what's wrong, but conflicting data, a lot of price testing, but sometimes we got that was good, but sometimes we got results that were mixed, so a lot of decisions that needed to get made that made me very, very nervous. Discovering a lightly tapped acquisition funnel. So as I was saying at the start of the conversation, when we started the journey, we were only talking about two funnels. We were talking about the LifeLock.com and the Norton.com funnel. We were spending probably less than 2% of our budget on app marketing 30 months ago. I think we're probably spending like 10 to 15% of our budget now. We discovered that, we've been very blessed because this VPN category has really taken off. I'm sure you guys see ads for like Nord and Express on TV all the time now. So we've really been able to get a good start in that market right now because we do have VPN products in our ecosystem, and the game plan there is to upsell into our more expensive products down the road. Have no idea what those upsell rates are going to look like because we've been pushing this product over the last year, but moving from about 2 to 3% of our marketing budget to about 15% of our marketing budget, and we're super DR, we're very, very DR focused, is definitely a win in my eyes. Opportunity, defining a customer. So when we were communicating to Wall Street, we had good revenue numbers, we had good churn numbers, and then we started to spend 15% of our marketing budget on app. Much lower ASP, much lower churn, much higher churn. So the question now that we have internally that we're struggling with is, do we count customers that come in through the app, the people that convert through the app as a customer because it's beneficial for overall subscriber numbers, but it's really bad for churn numbers and it's bad for ASP numbers. So I think the decision that we're taking is we're going to keep defining customers as like folks that are buying our standard LifeLock and our Norton products. We're going to keep VPN separate, but that's been an exciting journey. Appetite for risk and rapid testing. Like I said, we were historically on the slower side of making bigger decisions. We just don't have that comfort anymore, so that's definitely been a fun win for us. Summary. Okay, great. So trying to wrap this all up. First step, as I look back, it would have been much easier had we defined what a single success metric looked like when we started this journey. I'm going to really try and pound this message as we come in on the second acquisition right now that we're about to embark on. Obviously, lots of different stakeholders in the room, really hard to get buy-in on what the success metric looks like, but as a media person, it's always easier for me to be able to communicate with my team if I can say like, okay, yep, we're spending all this money and we're driving units, or we're driving revenue, or whatever that number is. So that's definitely, I think, step one. Organization, team, agency comes immediately after. Like I said, product launches, lots of people, lots of teams. It's all wonderful when the organization is clearly defined. Process. Getting the right process in place is integral is important for the overall smooth execution. Mistakes. So in the digital channel, we did a lot of rapid testing. We made a lot of mistakes. The good thing is, well, I'm still here, so we were able to sandbox the mistakes into smaller environments, and I tried to stay ahead of like a mistake. So if something wrong had happened, communicated up front, didn't let it be a surprise, took care of it as quickly as possible. But that's definitely been a part of the journey. It's going to be a part of the journey coming up. But try to like kind of gate it so it's not a huge channel and a lot of media spend. Risk appetite, as you guys can tell, made a lot of decisions that were gut, made me really nervous. Still here, so I think we made the right call in most of the situation. Simplify the journey. So there's landing pages, products, pricing, promo codes, funnels. I just go and I click on our ads and I kind of go through the journey. I just make sure everything's lined up, even across all of my channels. It's been wonderful having a couple of interns this summer because when I get tired, I have an additional source of hands and eyes to go do this for me. But honestly, just simplifying the journey has been huge. I click on all our email links, all our search links, all our display links, all our affiliate links, or as many of them as I can find, just to make sure things are all lined up. And then lastly, it's honestly like just been such a fun last 30 months of testing and learning and working with a variety of different people. And honestly, like it's a first world problem. Like we're starting this journey again in a few months' time, and I'm really, really excited because I think I've learned a lot more over the last like year and a half than I had over maybe the few years prior to that. So I'm really excited. So if any of you guys are going through this same journey, I think just buckle up, enjoy, and it's just really nice in hindsight to look back and think about everything that we've learned. So with that, I think I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
Saquib, thank you. We have time for questions, Saquib. Here.
Are we on? It was great meeting you last night. I just had a quick question. You were talking about how you were shrinking down your ad tech stack and some of the relationships. Are you allowed to talk about some of the criteria that you use to drive some of those business decisions?
Yeah, so I think step one was trying to figure out if we were even using the tech. So we had a DMP relationship which only one part of the marketing world was using. So we looked to see like, hey, look, why is that the case? Can we spread this cost across all of marketing or several more channels? So I think that was obviously like step one is, okay, are we using what we're already paying for? Step two, we looked at the level of support that we were also getting. So like when we reached out, like once again, like let's just use this DMP example. And we had a conversation as to why that was the case. It's like, hey guys, and similarly we had this, I'm trying to think about other examples. We had this DMP relationship. We had this landing page optimization vendor where we were like, hey guys, like why are you just applied in this, like in just search or just affiliates or just direct mail? And we just didn't get a good answer. It looked like, they were just passing the buck. We had conversations internally about like, hey, look, do we like the team? What's the process here? So I think just trying to figure out like, are we getting what we're paying for? Do we like the people that we're working with? And then the other conversation, which was the more of a gut call thing that we had to make, was like, okay, like, well, if we get rid of these companies, we don't have this tech, how sure are we that we're not going to use this in the next 12 months? Because going through the whole process with legal, compliance, getting the contracts done, that's just another 6 months. So if we didn't need it in the next 12 to 18 months, we just got rid of it. So that was the high level criteria that I recall. I'm sure we had a checklist of other things that we did, but those rise to the top of mind. So,
Would you talk a little bit more about the media mix? You said that it had evolved over time.
Yeah.
I want to focus a little bit, follow up on mobile, but just overall, what was the general media mix for all this?
Absolutely.
Where were you hitting them with what formats?
Yeah, so absolutely. I think there's a couple people here on the media side that we've worked with in the past, so they can attest to this as well. So LifeLock was, we were spending north of a couple $100 million annually just on the LifeLock side, and that was, and then on Norton we had like another large amount. LifeLock was, I would say, like 75% offline. We were very heavy. We're still very heavy on short form TV. We're one of the largest buyers of infomercials in the US on the LifeLock side. I think one quarter we were actually the largest. Big buyers of radio. So this is like I'm talking about. And then on the Norton side, it was all search and all affiliates, and not, so one side was all offline, or very offline, one side was only online, and we had, like I said, close to nothing on the mobile funnels. So I think today, we're probably 50% offline, maybe 35% on digital channels, and maybe 15% on mobile. If I'm trying to remember, like I did this yesterday.
Is it mainly display? How are you doing video storytelling? Is it mainly
display?
So are you doing retargeting? What's the customer journey?
Yeah, so we have a robust search team. We have a lot of we have a successful business on the search side. We have a successful business on the affiliate side. We spend a lot of money on display. We do a lot of email prospecting. We're just getting into CTV, into the CTV space. So I'm going to go find out more about this Amazon OTT business because we got the pitch. And anyways, so we're just getting into that. We do a lot of ads on radio on the offline side, like I said, on a lot of short-form TV and a lot of infomercials. Direct mail is probably like 5% of our overall marketing mix as well. So maybe, I correct my 50, 35, 15 split because direct mail is a separate channel for us. We don't really call it offline. So yeah, I think those are the larger channels. We're excited about getting into this CTV space though. So that's the big one that we've taken on this quarter.
You mentioned that you increased mobile considerably.
Yes.
Mobile conversion has always been, a real choke point for everybody. So tell me what you learned about what sort of messaging and placement where was driving conversions. What did you learn about that channel? Yeah, so let's see. So most of the success that we've had on the mobile side has been on our VPN app. We've been a huge beneficiary of a lot of the work that Norton Express has done in this VPN space by spending the large sums of money on their own offline advertising. So we've been able to draft off of that. So the biggest success on the mobile side. So I think, number one, I don't think there was just a ton of focus on the mobile funnels historically. So we started to care about it. I think we had a person I have a colleague who's responsible on the app marketing side. He was able to build a really good narrative and to get buy-in at the highest levels to talk about mobile and to be able to use mobile as a way to upsell into our more expensive categories. So he was just a wonderful storyteller internally. So he was able to get buy-in, which then increased focus, which then increased investment. And then when we were spending enough, we were able to go to products. So some silly things that we used to do, similar to when people wanted to pay us and we were like, hold on, give me all your details and then I'll take your money. We were able to build a funnel where we said like, hey, look, okay, we'll take your money, then give us your details. So like we made optimizations like that. I think until recently, and I might be wrong here, like we didn't even have user acquisition in the mobile funnel. I think it was only meant for existing customers to use it as an add-on. So just even using it, like putting like a sign-in button in the mobile funnel, that was huge. On the LifeLock app, that's definitely the case. Like we weren't ever thinking about using the app as a customer acquisition channel for selling identity theft insurance. And then we built a sign-in button in there, and we optimized the funnel. And then we were able to tell a good story internally, get investment, and then over time we've been able to tweak it. Like the creative's just a lot better now, and just iterative stuff outside of the big things that I mentioned. Saquib, Pasha, thank you so much.
Thank you.